بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. What did we talk about last week? Zakah. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. Everybody's paying attention. What did we talk about specifically? What was the title? You guys remember?
Why zakah?
Why do we give zakat? So what were some of the reasons that we had discussed? Remember we said that there are like three major purposes of the, what are they?
I think it was like spiritual,
Good.
economic.
MashaAllah.
I can't remember the other one.
What's the third?
Communal or something? I can't remember.
Good. Social.
Social.
Yeah, very good. So these are the three main elements and three main reasons for zakat. One of the other things that we had asked last week was, does zakat solve the poverty issue? No, it does not solve the poverty issue. Then what is the point of zakat? To purify my wealth. Excellent, good.
What is the point?
تطهيرا للمال. To purify my wealth.
Okay.
Yeah, mashallah. Good. I think that was it, right? And then we talked about specifically what are some of the spiritual benefits, what are some of the social benefits, some of the economic benefits. Good? Any other questions?
I'm saving a question.
Okay.
You're saving the question? Okay, perfect.
I'm saving it.
All right. So today this is a very rough breakdown on the fiqh of zakat. All right. And I know it can be overwhelming because of the number of categorizations and the breakdowns and things, but I've tried making this as simple as possible, inshallah. So here, خذ أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم وتزكيهم بها وصلي عليهم إن صلاتك سكن لهم والله سميع عليم. In order to cleanse and purify them, take alms out of their property and pay for them. Your prayer will be a comfort to them. Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And from this ayah, we get the purpose of zakat, which is to purify. Also, who gives zakat? Well,
Everyone that can. Just like an ask.
okay, good. Yes.
People had money that lasted 1 year.
Good. So we're getting into discussion on nisab. Excellent. Basically, any Muslim is eligible to give zakat. So what's interesting here is that for salah, who has to pray from amongst the Muslims? What are some additional conditions? Yes. He has to be baligh, meaning that he has to be mature, post-pubescent. Yes.
He has to have, if he's lacking in eyesight but can hear, he still has to pray. But if he's lacking in both,
You're talking about salat al-jama'ah. You're talking about congregational prayer.
No.
I'm just talking about prayer in general.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. So he has to be Muslim. He has to be baligh, right? Right. He has to be aqil. He has to be aware, right? He has to be mentally aware. Over here, I didn't put any of those conditions. Do you guys notice that? How come I didn't put any of those conditions here?
Because you can be insane and still give.
Right? So even if I am not mentally aware, and the reason I say this is because zakat doesn't follow the person, it follows the money, right? Versus the salah follows the individual, right? It doesn't follow the situation. So, and that situation can vary from person to person. Versus the zakat, the only condition is that the person be Muslim, and what the brother had mentioned, that I reach the minimum threshold. That's it. So even children, if they own something, then they have to give zakat on it. The only other exception, I would say, to a type of Muslim is the slave. The slave does not have to give zakat. Why?
Because he's not paid, he's slave.
Right, he's a slave, he's property, right? So property essentially cannot give zakat. So here, this is probably the biggest question. Like, what is zakatable?
Gold.
Okay, good. So zakatable items include cash and savings. So anything you guys have in the bank, any type of money that I might keep in my mattress, right? Gold and silver, these things are also zakatable. Business assets. Now, what does a business asset look like? It looks like inventory. It looks like cash. What is not included in business assets?
Machines.
Right, the machines. Right, if I have any machines, if I have any furniture, if I have a building, none of that would be included in zakatable assets.
So homes are not zakatable.
We'll get to that. That's the second category of non-zakatable items.
Okay.
All right. So stocks and investments. These are also zakatable. agricultural produce, how these are zakated are different. Zakated, I just made up a verb. But like how zakat is taken up on that is different than normal cash assets. Basically, how that works is that if it is naturally irrigated, I pay 10% of the crop. And if I have to irrigate it, meaning that I have to build a canal or something, then I would pay 5% on the yield. And livestock. And the condition concerning livestock is not that I just own it. Okay? So the additional one is that it has to be free roaming. What does free roaming mean? That it has to free roam on public land, or it can be somebody else's private land. But if I have a farm and I'm feeding those animals, guess what? I don't have to pay zakat. Oh, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So like, if you grow your own food for your family,
Mm-hmm.
is that zakat? Like, you're not selling it?
Anything that I consume, anything that I use, no zakat.
Okay, okay,
Anything that I sell,
okay,
right? Remember we said over here, business assets?
yeah,
So any business inventory I have is zakatable. Make sense?
yeah.
So non-zakatable item. What are things that absolutely is agreed upon that there's no zakat? Use items. What are use items? The things that we just mentioned, right? So clothing, food, house, car, none of these things can be zakated. Business use items, like we said, if I have a taxi, I don't pay zakat on the car itself. If I have a rental property, I don't pay it on the apartment itself or the home itself. If I have an oven, if I have, like, for example, a pizza shop, or if I have a restaurant, I'm not going to pay zakat on that oven. Precious stones. Yes.
The rental property, you don't pay zakat on the income that comes from it?
What did I put here?
Business use item.
Right? So the item itself, I don't pay zakat. But what do I pay zakat on? That would be in the first category, which is cash.
Cash, okay.
Make sense?
Gotcha, yes, not the house itself,
No.
not the value of the house.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because the problem is, like, the value of that house will probably outpace
Yes.
whatever rental income I'm getting. And sometimes I might even be making payments toward that property. So precious stones, and some of you might be familiar with this. So if I have diamonds, if I have sapphire, or if I even have rare commodities. So if I own 20 barrels of oil, for example, I'm not going to pay zakat on any of those things. Small animal stock, so if I have, like, chickens, quails, rabbits, right, none of those things, there's going to be zakat on them. Tayyib, when can these become zakatable?
When you sell them.
When I sell them, that's it, right? Because now they've entered business, right? This is now a business item, and that's why I would have to pay zakat in those situations on those items. But as long as they're use items or consumption items, I would not pay zakat on them. Does this make sense? Yes.
Why are precious stones not zakat?
Because the Prophet ﷺ did not dictate that there be zakat on them, nor did he dictate that there should be zakat on any commodity in general, unless it's saleable. The only things that Allah and His Messenger specifically said that it by itself is zakatable is gold and silver.
Also,
yeah.
stones can break and lose their value,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but gold and silver, even if you damage it, it's still gold and silver, so it maintains its value. So that's, like, I guess I would assume that that's the logic behind it.
Sure. All right. So, which is an excellent point. What about dollars, rubles, yen? Where would those fall under?
What do you mean?
So we said that the Quran and Sunnah specifically speak about gold and silver, right? Does it speak about rubles and yen and dollars?
Those
It's
have
under cash and
cash.
Well, I mean, this chair has value too.
What do you mean? Can you elaborate?
Sure. So, unfortunately, I don't really carry cash, but right, like a credit card, right, like plastic. There you go. So this right here, this piece of paper, right here, why is there zakat on that piece of paper?
Because it has value.
Because it has value. But is that the only condition, that it has value?
That you can buy stuff with it, and that it can, yeah, that you buy stuff with it, you earn it, and, like, you know, it goes into savings.
So the condition, it's a store of value,
It's a store of value.
right? Right. For this has value too, right? This has value. My thobe has value. Like, my jacket has value. This iPad has value. But can I use it and for active exchange? right? And it's not going to be universally acceptable. Like maybe somebody will barter my iPad for something, right? So if I'm like, hey, I really like your chair, would you exchange this iPad for it, right? That's something that, because there's value in both of these things, but it's not a universal exchange of value like gold and silver are. And saying that, even a dollar, even fiat currency, how do I determine how much zakat I pay on the fiat currency?
2% or 2.5%.
2.5% is on savings in general, right? The only exception we said were livestock and agriculture. So the 2.5%, why? Because we do analogy on gold and silver. Remember we said it was a store of value, right? Gold and silver, because it's a store of value and it's used as a currency, then we would apply that same logic to this type of currency. Not just that, how do I determine the minimum threshold? Because Islamically, the minimum threshold is 85 grams of gold, right? So dollars, it inflates, right? The price fluctuates every single year. So how do I determine on how many dollars I would pay? I would weigh it against the value of gold. Make sense? Any questions on the zakatable items? Yes.
The other question is, why is livestock only zakatable when it's food grazing? Is that also ruling from
Yes.
the
Yeah. So it's a behemoth al-an'am, like a sa'ima, right? So those that are free grazing, because you're not spending money to feed it. Does that make sense? Right. So if I have animals that are just on open pasture, that are public land, I'm benefiting from the land, but what am I contributing? Right? I'm not contributing anything, right? I mean, someone might argue it's like, oh, well, when the animal droppings fertilize the land, or there's other ways that I would say passive ways that there's a contribution, but there's no active contribution to it. But if I'm feeding the animals, does it make sense that I'm feeding these animals and then paying tax on top of that?
Well, you can deduct whatever you pay.
Sure. I mean, you can deduct your feed costs and stuff like that, but then most people won't be paying zakat, honestly. Right? Like feed isn't cheap. How many of you have raised chickens before? Yeah. Is it cheaper than buying eggs?
No.
No, it's not. What? Because depending on the quality of the feed, right? So if you buy good quality feed, it actually ends up being more expensive than buying organic eggs, right? So I'm not even talking about like regular eggs. So it's important to kind of keep these things. Like sometimes we don't think about these things. Like, oh yeah, chicken's great. They lay eggs. Like yeah, and you'll get good quality eggs. Like the richness and stuff like that definitely be different. But it costs money to feed them, right? And it's not free. And chickens eat a lot. Right? They eat a good amount. Zakat deductible. You guys understand that term or no? No? Zakat deductible means that I can use these items to lessen my zakat burden.
Like tax deduction.
It's like tax, yeah, like tax deductible. I thought I was being a little, I thought it was funny, but yeah.
It is.
It's a little shara'i humor.
It's funny, but it's also anxiety because it's more and more like complicated.
I just made it more complicated. Almost done. So debts are zakat deductible.
So basically,
Uh-huh.
like the average American here in this country is in debt.
So
If they're owning a house,
sh-
basically they don't have to pay zakat for.
so that we'll talk about that, because there are types of debt. Yes, you have long-term and you have short-term debts. Sometimes you have personal loans, right? So all of these will translate into different types of debt. So if I owe somebody money, when it comes time to calculate my zakat burden, I can subtract that. But how much? So if I own a $500,000 house, right, and I've only paid off $250,000, that means that my debt is $250,000. Can I subtract that every time I'm calculating my zakat?
It's a debt.
So it is a debt, but this is what we would call a long-term debt. And not just that, is the bank asking me for $250,000 today? How much are they asking from me today? What portion?
The minimum.
1 year.
Payment.
They're asking me for right now, today they're asking me for 1 month.
For 1 month.
So
If you pay zakat yearly, on a yearly basis,
Yeah.
you should count at least for 1 year.
So what happened in that past year? I made 11 payments.
Okay.
Are you guys following?
Yep.
So why do I have the right to double that?
To double it?
Yeah, so I want you to think about this a little bit. If I'm subtracting
A year's worth.
a year's worth of mortgage when I've already paid a year's, why am I subtracting it again?
Because you're gonna be paying years over next year.
And then the next zakat, what's going to happen?
Same thing, if you still have over 1 year of payment.
So I paid 1 year and I'm paying 1 year forward, but I'm able to subtract that?
Ah, I see what you mean. So you're
You're
subtracting
subtracting
the
the
same
debt
year 20, 30 times until you're done.
So we are in 1446 right now. My tax year, my fiscal year was what?
The year prior.
1445 to 1446. From 1445 until 1446, we're Jamadi Thani right now. What have I been doing that entire time? I've been paying my mortgage. So why would I subtract it again? Are you following?
Yeah, but I'm thinking for next year, I'm not thinking.
For next year, right? You're going to be paying the coming year too, right? So what's going to happen is when that year passes, you've paid 11 months worth of mortgages.
Correct, but I'm paying, what I'm deducting is the debt that I have over next year.
No, the only debt I'm allowed to deduct is for that month. If I haven't paid it yet. If I already paid it, khalas, the debt is gone. But that's exactly what the bank is after. This is why it's important to differentiate between long-term and short-term debts. Long-term debts, if I have student loans, if I have a mortgage, right? If I have car payments, if I have, even if I have credit card payments, the credit card company, are they asking me for all the money today? No, they're not. They're asking me for a portion, and whatever portion I would pay, not what is the demand.
Wait, so why
Yeah.
are you doubling it?
We're not. Some people want to double it. And-
Oh, okay, now I understand. Oh, now I understand.
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So if you, say you have $25,000 in credit card debt,
Yes.
and it's December, that's when you pay your zakat.
Yeah.
On a monthly basis, you've been paying, say, $1,000.
You can deduct 1,000.
Just the
Yes.
1,000, but
Yeah.
not the 25?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Or if I'm intending to pay more,
Okay.
Right.
Whatever you intend to pay.
whatever my intention was to pay that month, and I can't be like, oh, I've been paying $400 a month, but this month I want to pay
That's right, I'm very
$2,500.
good. Okay.
So whatever I would pay, that's what I would subtract, and that's what I would deduct from it. Everybody
Wouldn't
following?
be like this the same idea? I mean, you're explaining this now because we're dealing with the bank, and you
Yeah.
have a minimum payment every
Sure.
month, whatever you can pay in it if you're not paying interest. But take the same amount, and if we're just dealing together, like
Me and you.
you owe me
This-
$25,000.
Yeah. This is an immediate debt.
Yeah, it's an immediate because.
I want the money today.
What if I don't want the money now? I mean, you're paying
That-
me like.
Sure.
Whenever you have money. You're
So
paying me.
if that money is due, then what less than 1 lunar year, then I would consider this an immediate debt. Make sense?
Okay.
And if it's like no, you can pay it. If someone gives me the option like no, you can pay it over time. You know, and I'll be like, hey, listen, it might take me a couple years. And you're like, yeah, that's fine. Okay, khalas. Then I can only deduct for that month that I would be making that payment. Fair? Which brings us to immediate debts. That's the second type. Yeah.
If you flip that, so if somebody borrows
Yeah.
money from me, I'm supposed to pay zakat on that.
Yes.
Is there a distinction between like?
So
one-third
there is a difference of opinion on how to pay zakat on borrowed money, and I'm going to get to, because what is one item that is popular that I haven't mentioned yet that is zakatable?
Yeah. I mean,
Somebody mentioned it here, but it didn't come up on the screen.
A home?
Jewelry,
jewelry.
right? I didn't bring it up, right? Correct. It's not here. Because I didn't bring it up, the reason I didn't bring it up is because of the difference of opinion. One of the differences of opinion on is, okay, if I let somebody borrow $5,000, am I responsible to pay zakat on it? Or is the person who borrowed the money responsible?
I think
Fine.
both. Both.
I am, I own it. No, the person who borrowed it is not responsible.
I'm saying he will. have
So,
to pay.
no, basically, the debtor does not have to pay zakat. The creditor does because it's my money, I own it.
Right.
Make sense?
Yes.
But What if it's been 3 years and he hasn't paid me back? Am I still responsible? That's where the khilaf comes.
Yeah.
Okay?
I mean, you.
We'll come back. We'll come back. We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. Yes.
How about a stock?
Huh?
You pay in stocks.
No, if you have stocks, you have to pay zakat on those. The way you do it would be a little bit different. So how you pay zakat on these items, we'll talk about that inshallah.
IRA?
I'm sorry? 401ks, Roth IRAs, all of those, we'll definitely talk about how, okay, well, how do I pay zakat on these things? Yes.
Are there accountants, like Muslim accountants that can help us, like,
I actually think there are. So one of the things that I wanted to get to toward the end, unfortunately, I should have included it in the presentation, is like, okay, well, you know, it's difficult for me to remember like all of these categories and stuff. Like, what do I do and how do I calculate this? There are actually calculators online. Yeah. So you do a Google search for zakat calculators, and you can actually compare between the two. Some of them like will actually calculate a little bit high. Like, so for me, if someone said like the same calculation, I would come up with the lower number. But those calculators always, they err on the side of caution. So like that'll be basically the maximum potential zakat that you owe. Make sense? Even though I might differ in what is actually owed.
I did not catch it. She mentioned something about the 401k.
Yeah, so Roth IRAs, 401ks, basically all of these investment vehicles, how do I pay zakat on those?
Well, the 401k, I mean, it's something that you would start earning from once you retire, right?
Sure.
But do you start paying from now?
Do I voluntarily contribute to it?
Yeah. Volunteer. Yeah.
Right? We'll get to it.
Okay.
Man, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but zakat can be very confusing,
Yeah.
and I don't want to confuse the subject further. My question, right now, does everybody kind of understand the categories?
Yeah.
Right? Is everybody following, like, okay, yeah, it makes sense why I have to pay zakat on this and why I don't have to pay zakat here? Is that clear so far? Good. So these are some of the long-term ones. Like I said, in the long-term ones that you would be able to take off the monthly payment, but you cannot take off the entire amount. Immediate payments are completely deductible. So if I owe someone $10,000 and he's like, yo, I need the money right now, I can take all of that off my zakat burden, my total zakat burden, inshallah. Unpaid taxes, if I owe the government money. Why? Because it's a debt that I owe to the government. That's something that I can also remove. What does this last one say? Oh, business liabilities. Yeah, so because businesses, many of them operate in debt, right? And part of the reason for that is so that it lessens their tax burden, which interestingly enough will also lessen their zakat zakat burden. It's very similar logic. And this last one, what does it say, man? Immediate financial obligations. Right? This is what I had mentioned, right? So if anything that I have to pay immediately, that's something that I can also remove from my zakat burden. The difference of opinion, jewelry. We had mentioned this last time that there is a difference of opinion on worn jewelry. So if I have gold or silver, on whether I have to pay zakat on that or not. The majority say that you do not, and there is a difference of opinion concerning this issue. Whatever you follow, it's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may He azza wa jal accept. Frozen assets. So what do frozen assets look like? So either the government froze them, or somebody extorted me for money, right? Someone just extorts me for money and be like, hey, listen, give me $10,000. I give him the money because I feel like I'm forced to give him that money. Whose money is it? It's mine. Am I responsible for it or not? Difference of opinion is like, well, if you feel that you will receive it at some point, then you still have to give zakat on it every year. I believe it's the Shafi'i opinion that you give zakat at the time you receive it. So whenever I get the money back, it is at that time that I would give zakat on it. I think the Malikis, they say that you would give your due the zakat when you receive your money, and you have to back pay all of the zakat previously, yeah. Yeah. And then, so there is a difference of opinion on this. And then some say that, no, you only pay the zakat the year that you had ownership and control over that wealth, over that money. Loans that aren't repaid, it's the same kind of concept. So if I give someone money, I've been asking them for a year, I've been asking them for 2 years, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna ever get this money back. Same type of logic. Do I pay zakat every year, or do I only pay the year that the money actually comes back to me? 401ks. So any type of investment vehicle, I probably should have just put investment vehicles here, but 401ks, Roth IRAs, any type of long-term investments that we make, how do I pay zakat on those? I think that there are two opinions concerning this. There is a third opinion, but I think it shouldn't even be from the accepted opinions. But basically one is that you pay regular zakat on it because it's wealth that you own. That's one opinion. The second opinion is that because it's a long-term investment, you treat that investment like a business. Meaning that if I bought a share or I purchased a store, like so for example, Al-Hijrah purchased this cafe. This cafe cost, how much was it to build it up? Okay, $40,000 to build it up, and let's say the space is worth like another $60,000, $100,000. What would I pay zakat on this space? Would I pay it on the floor?
No.
Would I pay it on the furnishing? What do I pay the zakat on?
Whatever the money that comes out of it.
All right, from the money for sure. What else?
The saleable thing, like the coffee.
Inventory.
Right, the inventory, absolutely. So if I have the milk, coffee, sugar, right, all like the matcha, all of these items that are saleable, I would pay zakat on all of those things. But from that $100,000, what value do you think how much do you think that's worth? If we say everything plus including inventory, this entire space, including inventory, is valued at $100,000, what percentage of that do you think is actually saleable and actually cash on hand? Right? So what some scholars have done, they say, okay, you know what? We're gonna take it very safe and make it 30% of the value. So what they've done is they said, okay, if you take 30% of that value, then that is zakatable. And that ends up being like 0.5%. 0.5%.
0.5.
Yeah, instead of 2.5.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm taxing 1/3 of the value. So if my portfolio is worth $100,000, instead of me paying $2,500, I'm going to be paying $500.
500 rates.
Yeah, make sense?
Where can we read more about this?
Hatim al-Hajj has a fatwa on this where he goes into detail discussing it. Feel free to shoot me an email or do a search, right? Do a Google search. You actually have, there are a couple papers that I read where they said, no, the valuation shouldn't be 1/3. And they did a survey of a number of companies and they said it should actually be closer to 20% of the valuation, not 30. So it's actually really interesting, some of the research that's come out on this, because what they did was actually, he just took like a few and he was like, okay, based on what I'm seeing, I think 1/3 is fair. They actually surveyed companies, how much are your cash holdings and how much inventory do you have? Because the problem is that you have some, like for example, Lego, you guys know what Legos are? Right? So the Lego company, they have cash holdings and they have inventory. But you have companies like Uber. Do they have any inventory? No, right? It's a service, right? All they do is they provide service. So the only thing that can be zakatable for them is, right, the cash that they hold. So like you have to do a survey of not just inventory, like, sales companies, you have to do service companies as well. And you just kind of do a survey of them and then you kind of figure out what the average is, because that's a lot easier than instead of figuring out every year, what is the valuation of this company and how much cash do they have and what is their debt to income rate. Like that, it becomes too much. So I think 30% is safe. I think 20% is actual, right? And then anything less than that, you're splitting hairs, and I don't think you'll really there's not a lot of benefit of going any lower than that, honestly.
And does those calculators that you just mentioned,
They don't do it like this. They do 2.5%.
they
Remember I told you?
yeah.
Right? I said if you just go into the calculators, you basically plug in all these numbers,
Yeah.
and they'll be like, okay, yeah, 2.5% times everything.
Oh, for everything. Okay.
Yeah. So
You'll be
Yeah.
on the safe side.
yeah. No, remember I told you the maximum potential zakat that you have to pay is through these calculators, versus actually sitting down with someone and figuring out and calculating what that looks like.
How did they come up with the 0.5%?
So the zero is 2.5% times 1/3 of the value. Remember we said that the cash plus or maybe I have the number wrong. I don't know. Or is it 0.8? Like 0.83. Oh, I'm sorry, 0.83. You're right. Yeah.
Hang on. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So 2.5% times 1/3.
Oh, 0.75.
or 0.75, thank you, that's what it is. It's not 0.2, not 0.5, 0.75. Jazakallah khair. That's exactly what it is. So 0.75, yes, please. Yeah, 0.07. No,
0.075.
dude, I'm so lost right now. Like there's so many decimal points, man.
Yeah, 0.075 of the total value of the business.
0.025 times 1/3 equals 0.8%. You're right.
Well, it depends, if it's a third.
Yeah. Oh, if you do a third, I did. Yes,
30%.
it's 30%. I'm sorry. 0.025 times 0.3 would be 0.0075, which is 0.75%. Yeah, I'm sorry. Jazakallah khair. It's 0.75%. So $750. Like if I had $100,000 in my Roth IRA, then I would pay $750 of zakat on that every year, versus $2,500. That yeah.
If you're not eligible to get your minimum required distribution,
Yeah.
because if you are, then do you?
Then it's
pay?
different,
Okay.
right? Because now I would pay. I'm getting a payout every month,
Yeah.
correct?
Or once a year.
Or once a year, however you choose that.
Exactly.
At that point, it would, because you have full access to it, the way it's not a long-term investment anymore, and you're fully taxed on a year's amount,
Yes.
and the rest of it you would be this long-term investment. Does that make sense? Huh?
Yeah, I'm not higher.
Hey, listen, you know the easiest way to do all this? Make an appointment with me and sit down and we'll go through. No, I literally, I had a young woman, she was like, hey, I don't know how to figure out my zakat. These are my holdings and this and that, blah, blah, blah. So I said, and I was like, listen, you're speaking too theoretically. There's no way for me to help you calculate. And even as I was explaining to her, she was like, you know what I mean? Like I'm totally lost. So you know what she did? She sent me a spreadsheet. She gave me a breakdown, like these are my savings, these are my expenses, blah, blah, blah. And I walked her through every single month that, okay, no, this is here, your zakat actually started here, this year you didn't have to pay anything, and this, you know what I mean? So I actually went through and I translated some of the dates for her and to be like, okay, your zakat due date is actually, and I think it was like Jumadi, like maybe Jumadi al-Awwal, you know what I mean? So like sitting down, I have no problem helping anyone, but you're gonna have to be very transparent with your holdings, right? That's the only thing. And it's the same thing as if you went to an accountant, right? So if you go to somebody who prepares your taxes or you go to an accountant, you have to be fully transparent in what your holdings are, and that's the only way that they can help you translate those zakat. These are just meant to be general guidelines. If you guys want to calculate on your own, khair wa ni'ma wa barakah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. easy for you.
Like a spreadsheet for everyone.
Yeah. So you can, absolutely. Like, so coming up with our own calculator, that might be something that's reasonable.
I'm going to software development, so
Okay.
just wait a few years, guys. Just wait a few years.
I have an IT guy here. He can create a code for you.
Okay, mashallah, Allahumma barik. So how do I determine it? Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question about this.
Sure.
The zakat deductible taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So is that, do you count it for the entire year?
Yes, no. You would count out for the year, because when do you pay it out?
April.
You pay it once a year.
But then it's not immediate. How is that different from the?
Sure. It is different, because if you had the ability to pay it monthly, you would. But many of us, what happens with the taxes, it's a little bit different from other types of payments, because credit cards, the only time I make the minimal payment is when I've fallen behind, right? So it might be either from poor planning, it might be from negligence, it might be from whatever the reason is, which is why I have to set up those monthly payments, or I've done a balance transfer, or I have 0% payments, whatever the case might be, right? When it comes to taxes, if I don't pay my taxes on time, what do I have to do? I have to set up monthly payments, right? I have no choice at that point. And what is the biggest problems with paying taxes monthly? Does anybody know? It compounds. So if you think credit cards are bad, try missing a payment with the IRS. And so that's why I'm saying, like, there's a, even just like from general fiscal literacy, if I have debt with a credit card, with the IRS, and with a phone company, or how do I prioritize which debt to pay off first?
With the highest
The one with the highest interest rate. Like very simply, right? The one that has the highest interest rate, I do that. And usually what'll be lower and the lowest on that scale will be like student loans, right? They have very low interest. A mortgage, right? That'll have generally low interest. Car payment, depending, right? That'll have relatively low. But then after that, immediately it's going to start ramping up credit card payments, right? Those are like 20, 30%. Even, what do you call it? Even IRS payments, it can get very high and it can start compounding very quickly. So that's why I feel that there's a sense of urgency with that, and why I'm okay with taking a year out, because generally it's only paid once a year anyway, versus other type of payments that we make.
And so with the same reasoning, the property taxes, because you pay them twice a year, and you.
So the property taxes, that depends. Most people will put it into their monthly escrow, right? Most people put it in their monthly escrow. So that's why you can pay it off every month. And that's why you can deduct that month versus doing it for the year. And even if you do it, even if you say, oh, okay, well, can you do it for a year? The county doesn't wait a year. We have to pay every 6 months. Right? So, I mean, Allah protect us from taxes. So, like, yeah.
You mentioned 2 opinions for the 401k, but you discussed only one.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, full zakat or 0.75.
Oh, okay.
Those are the 2 opinions. The third opinion, this is somebody, like, I only know an American scholar who takes this opinion, where he says that you don't pay zakat at all until you start or become eligible to collect it. I have a problem with that, because it's something that you voluntarily contribute to and you own it, right? So even if I wanted to take it today, I could. I'm just going to pay taxes and penalties.
It's, I mean, so probably this scholar, I mean, we have the luxury of looking at our 401k, but look in like different countries, like where I came from Syria.
Sure.
People don't know those stuff.
So, but it's very easy to do qiyas on what? What can I do analogy on with the 401k?
Like the monthly income.
Business.
Well, business partially, yes, I agree. What else? Cash, not cash so much. I want you guys, it is cash, but what type of cash?
Saving?
Inheritance?
The interest.
Investment.
A loan,
No.
right? Because I'm giving money,
To the government.
I own it, right? I own it, but I can't control it. It's the same thing here. I'm giving the money, but I don't have control, right? So the 2 conditions in general for zakat amongst the madahib are milk wa sarf, right? Sometimes amlik, but ma aqdir an asrif, right? And if I borrow money, asrif lakin la amlik. Right, so these 2 conditions are generally used to determine zakat. Basically what that means is ownership and use. Right, so sometimes I can own something, but I can't use it. And with borrowed money, I can use it, but I don't own it. Make sense? So I say that there's enough, I would say there's enough evidence to say that you can apply, and you have enough precedence to take from, to say like, no, this isn't a completely unique situation. There are actually situations that parallel this.
Yeah, I mean the conditions there is different than here. Here you can withdraw all your 401k.
Sure.
Right, but over there they don't.
Yeah.
They don't have the option.
Yeah. Like, sometimes the government will just take it and eat it.
And plus, what is it?
I said sometimes the government will just take it and eat it. Allah Mustaan.
Or just throw you in prison.
Yeah. It's like, hey, can I have my money back? It's like, hey, can you come with us, please?
What about the social? I mean, if I'm not
Yeah.
contributing to 401k,
Yeah.
what about the social security?
Exactly.
Okay, Social Security is I consider it more a tax. It's a tax, right? Because the money that I put into Social Security, am I getting the same exact back?
No.
No, we tend to give more than we're receiving. So I think it's more like paying for a upcoming service.
Okay.
And once you make that payment, khalas, it's gone. Like, what are taxes? What are they?
It's supposed to be a reinvestment back into your economy, but
It's a type of dhulm, right? No, I'm saying like taxes in general are meant to pay for services,
Yeah.
right? So property tax, where does the majority of my property tax go?
Roads.
Right.
It actually doesn't go. Majority of it doesn't go to roads.
Israel.
Israel.
Oh,
Only in Fairfax. No, but a majority of it actually.
Goes to collect
It actually goes to the school system.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
50%.
Yeah, majority of it goes to the school system, it makes me feel worse because my kids go to school here. So like, so the other percentages of like, where the rest of the money goes, it goes into other emergency services. So police, fire department, right? Like, it goes there. And then waste management, right? So waste management, water management. So this is usually where property taxes go. Probably out of all of these services, the trash service is the only one I'm okay with. So the firefighters,
Firefighters help.
yeah, but they're not working neither, right?
But
They're just getting cats out of trees. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's my
Then
cat.
rushes, exactly, rushes to the hospital.
So, yeah, and I still have to pay for my insurance, right? So like, there's there are different services, right? And the thing is, all of these are meant to pay for those services. So it's not really like an investment, quote unquote, because they're like, for example, I have 5 kids. So I'm like really taking advantage of my property taxes, right? And there's some people who are single, right? There's some people who have no children. There's some people, it's just a husband and wife. So it's like some people are able to take advantage of certain services, or like I've never called the police, for example, right? There's certain services I've never taken advantage of. My cat never got stuck in a tree. I have 2. I have 2, but they stay inside. And I paid so much for those cats, man.
We did too.
Yeah, it's like I love this stat. So like, no, those cats stay inside. They're not like, because the moment they get outside, I know somebody's gonna steal them. Like,
Ragdolls?
yeah, I have a ragdoll. Yeah.
They're so cute.
Amazing. So there are certain services that maybe you'll take advantage of, maybe you won't take advantage of, but the idea is to have them present. And not just that, there's certain services we pay for and it's not a big deal. So for example, if I pay for a security service, do I want to use the service? Can like 5 years go by and be like, oh, I didn't get my money's worth out of this. How come nobody broke into my house, right?
Yeah. No, we don't want that.
Right, there are certain things you hope that they don't get utilized, and it's very similar, with these township services that are there. It's the same thing with Social Security, right? The idea is that you pay into some of these things. Now, you can discuss and argue on, is it managed well? Are they doing a good job with that? I'm okay with like having those conversations. Like, is it a good use of American taxpayer money? Okay, let's have those conversations. But like I said, I think that's more paying in for a service, and then if there's a payout for my generation, there's probably not going to be. There's probably not going to be a payout, so it's a better idea that I start doing my own investments now. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our families. Ameen. So how do I determine zakah? That it will be shared between the madahib concerning this is something that is called nisab. Nisab is the minimum threshold that I have to reach. That minimum threshold is 85 grams. Hanbalis, they say that you use the silver threshold. So this is about $4,500, more or less, right? 85 grams. The amount of silver that is required to reach the same threshold, it's about $500, $500 to $700 to reach that minimum threshold. But I feel that when you're making an obligation, it's always safer to hit the higher portion versus the lower. Yes.
How literalists would pay their zakat. So like
Every $4,500 they would pay zakat.
so that they would never exceed $4,500 or
No. So if I have $27,000, for I would divide that by 4,500, and that's how often I would pay. Like every increment, I would pay the zakat on those increments.
Okay.
Right. This is a very minority opinion. Like, not too many people use it. I find it very difficult. I find it impractical, and not just that. When you deal with money as static, I don't think it's realistic, right? Because when it comes to money, money's constantly flowing, right? I have money coming in, I have money going out. It makes more sense to treat it like a liquid, and Allah knows best. But I just wanted you guys to be aware of it because it is an opinion that's out there.
To go back on precious stones, are pearls considered precious stones?
Yes.
Stones and coral and all of
Yeah,
that?
all of those things.
And no zakat?
No zakat. Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
yeah. So here, who do I give zakat to? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين في سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. So over here, alms are meant only for the poor, the needy, those who administer them, yani the tax collectors, those whose hearts need winning over, basically those people who just need that push to become Muslim, to to free slaves and to help those in debt for Allah's cause and for travelers in need. This is ordained by Allah. Allah is all-knowing and wise. So there are two things I want you guys to look at. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتِ, in this lamb that's here, He says, لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهِ وَالْمُؤَلِّفَةِ الْقُلُوبِ. Right? So these four categories, that begins with the lamb. Okay, and we're going to talk about why this is important. And then the remainder, He says, wa fi. Okay? So this lamb and this fi, this is going to have a difference in what happens with that zakat money, and we're going to talk about that right now. So the first four are individuals. Who are they? The faqir, the miskin, the amil, and the mu'allafat al-qulub. Right? So those individuals who you want, either they're new to Islam, or all they need is that little bit of financial push to bring them into Islam. And the fee, these are for causes. Okay? And this is important. This is for freeing slaves, for debtors, right? So those people who are in debt. For the cause of Allah, fi sabilillah, there's a big difference of opinion on what this means. And the travelers, ibn sabil, meaning that they're outside and they have no means, they don't have access to their wealth. And here, what this lamb and this fee, what difference does it make is that regardless of how much money I give to the faqir, if there's any money left over, what can he do with it? He can keep it. Okay? Versus the causes, those are ongoing. And any money that's there, it's going to be held by the zakat pool. It's not going to be distributed. Does that make sense? So these causes are going to be there, and every time it's like, okay, hey, it's going to cost 10,000 to free the slave. Okay, here's 10,000. All right, they're going to keep collecting money. It's like, okay, and 13,000 to free this slave, 5,000 to free that slave. So these are ongoing causes that there will be ongoing collections for them. And where's the excess money not going to go? To the person himself. Does that make sense? In the first set of categories, if there's any extra money, that person has every right to hold on to it and to keep it. But in this situation, it's only for, like, you guys, you know the goals that you, like, GoFundMe and the crowdsourcing and stuff. So it's like the goal for this is $6,000. Once it reaches $6,000, the payment is going to stop. But for the individuals, the payment can go above and beyond. Now, the big difference of opinion comes where? In fi sabilillah. Classically, what did this mean? Where would the money go? It would go to war, right? This would go to soldiers. So now that we don't really have that category, what have some scholars said? Right? So defense of what? So they say, okay, the physical war and physical battles have stopped, but the intellectual war is still ongoing. So anybody involved in the intellectual war who's on the forefront of that, they have now become zakat eligible.
So like a mufti, or who, like?
So like Yaqeen Institute,
Okay.
right? Yaqeen Institute, Sapiens Institute. You have all of these institutes now that are these think tanks. What have they started doing? They've started collecting. They say we are zakat eligible.
Okay. And they are, I mean, they're pushing back on all.
I'm saying here, putting the work aside, right? Like, alhamdulillah, whether you agree or disagree, whatever the case might be, mashallah, they're doing good work, right? And they're some of the few institutions that are really pushing back against Western propaganda, and any anti-Islamic thought, there's a pushback from them. Muslim Matters, another organization that does those things, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless them. Like, are they actually eligible for zakat?
Allahu A'lam.
Wallahu a'lam, right? And then I'm saying, like, this really depends on how you interpret the ayah.
But their work requires them to travel, requires.
That's fine. Nobody's denying any of those things.
But it's education nonetheless, so would it not still, I mean, maybe not like for like defense intellectually, if you say you don't believe in that, but would it still not qualify for education? Because they're still educating people on Muslim matters.
So, which category does education fall under?
Okay, yeah, he's good enough. Okay.
It's the same thing,
Yeah.
right? So if you're willing to make that jump, so now, can you apply this to all institutions that are helping the Muslims? If I'm part of an institution that helps build wells, if I have a hospital, right? Like, and you start opening up that door and you say, okay, well, even masajid are on the forefront of da'wah and they're defending. So the counter question to this comes is like, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He starts this ayah with, oh man, I wish I didn't have to do this, but here. He starts the ayah with, what is the first word there? Do you guys read? No. Innama. Innama, the scholars say yufid al-hasr. So this word innama, it means only. Are you guys seeing the problem?
Yeah.
You say zakat is only for these 8 groups. And if I start opening up, saying, okay, yeah, masajid and hospitals, blah, 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 what benefit is only? Because now you're like, okay, well, technically everybody's is eligible for zakat. And if everybody's eligible, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say only? You guys seeing the problem? So this is why there's khilaf, right? And this is why you have a difference of opinion. Much to the chagrin of my executive director, I do not think masajid are zakat eligible.
I mean, Bismillah, I would think anything, any cause, any social justice cause.
Sure.
Yes, like
Okay.
care. Care is.
Sure. And this is what I close with. Okay, who do I give my zakat to? Right? It depends. If I want to make sure it goes to individuals, there are organizations out there that will help me do that. Islamic Relief, Helping Hand, etc. There are other organizations I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Tayyib, if I'm okay with institutions and social justice causes, well, who can I give to? I can give to my local masjid. I can give to CARE, right? I can give to ICNA,
Yeah, it's your boss.
right?
That's your
Or,
head.
you know what I mean? Like, but like I said, if you're like, okay, well, you know, all of these organizations are doing and performing different social justice causes, that's good, right? I'm not saying that in itself is a problem. The question comes, all right, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says zakat is only for, like, what are you limiting for by only if I took one category fi sabilillah and I open it up to everybody? Are you seeing the contradiction?
It's less focused towards helping people directly in need.
Yeah. So it's a valid difference of opinion. Now, I'm not here to dismiss that at all. And if you feel that, no, this is something that is worthy and you can give to it, bismillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. Like, all you're doing is engaging in a difference of opinion and you're like, no, I think this opinion is valid and I want my zakat to go to this because I think that this is something that will help. That's great. I don't have a problem with that. Yes, Alma.
Remember last Ramadan I asked you, I said, is donations to zakat deductible?
Yeah.
You told me, you won't like my answer, ask Muslim.
So, like, regardless of the opinion you take, and you're welcome to take that opinion, right? I'm never going to chastise you. I'm never going to look down on somebody. It's like, why? Because there's a valid difference of opinion here. Utilize it. Bismillah. If you think this is good, go for it. Which leads us to our question for the discussion. Like, what are some common mistakes people make when calculating zakah? And how can we ensure accuracy in fulfilling this obligation? Huh? I want you guys to discuss this amongst yourselves, inshallah, and then we'll come back in about 5 minutes.
Like a mystery.
So zakat makes us fiscally responsible.
Yes, exactly.
Like because we have to be.
Yes.
I need to know how much money is coming in, money's going out. Like, I need to know where that money is because every year what's going to happen? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be like, okay, where is this money going? Because I have to give Allah His due,
Okay,
right? So I think nowadays it's become so easy, right? If you, do most of you use credit cards, I'm assuming?
Yes.
So there's so many, like, it gives you a breakdown.
Right.
So like every monthly statement. So there are 2 main credit cards that I use. I use Bank of America and Chase. Bank of America's on the BDS list, by the way. Yeah, yeah. But like, just taking my money out is just so difficult. In Chase, what they'll do is they'll actually break down how you use your money.
Right, services.
Yeah, he'll give you like a little wheel.
Little circle.
Yeah. No. So the thing is, like, if you scroll down, it'll actually allow you to budget in each category, and it will tell you how much you've spent in each category. So all you have to do is like use one of those services, and it'll give you a breakdown of how you're using your money every month. And that way, what you can do is be like, oh, well, we use more this month, and like, so for example, if you do bulk frozen meat shopping, like once every other month, like I'm buying meat for the next 6 weeks because I have a deep freezer and I have enough room, and like this is how we usually do it in my house. Okay, but So that expense is only going to show up once every other month, right? But at the end of the year, at least I can figure out, okay, well, what is my average expenditure? So you use these tools. Like, I mean, subhanAllah, we live in an era, it's just like, it's so easy to track money. It's so easy to make money. Like, it's crazy. It really is. But it's an amanah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think zakat is a great reminder of how to budget and when we should budget. Anyone else? Yes. Yeah.
I said it like, some people like they'll have yard sales
Mhm.
and they maybe won't take that into like calculation
Okay.
because it'll be like a small profit or something or like a small sum,
Mhm.
and they might have like these accumulations that they don't compile into the.
Oh, into their larger pool. Okay, so they'll like kind of dismiss these small sales. Okay, that's a possibility. Yeah. People still do yard sales.
I mean, yeah, people in my neighborhood.
Yeah, my neighborhood,
Okay.
I would say.
I mean, y'all live in nice neighborhoods, mashallah.
It's a white.
But honestly, I'm like, oh, okay, they do
It's like y'all must live around white people.
I know. Honestly, it's a white American thing. I
That's
haven't
what they
seen
do,
any
yeah.
like
Yeah.
white person do it.
Yeah, it's like I use Facebook Marketplace when I want to
Yeah.
sell stuff. So, but yeah, these small sales definitely can take into, like, people might overlook those. What else?
How did the book sale go?
Huh?
How did the book sale go on Sunday?
I don't see any more books, so I was gonna say I'm assuming either it went really well or really poorly, like one of the two. But I think a lot of people just kind of picked up books and they donated because they wanted to donate to the Janazah Fund and support the Janazah Fund more than about the books. Do you have any idea how we did, Yusuf?
I don't know, some people got like to give 5, 6, 7 books.
In giving $5, $6, $7?
No, 50.
Oh, okay, mashallah. Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. No, I'm happy to hear that.
So
Yeah.
I'm hearing three common mistakes, I think. So one is calculating zakat based on the like calendar year as opposed to lunar.
Yeah. That's actually a very common mistake. I have a number of people who reach out to me. They're like, okay, I'm usually paid in March, or I usually paid in May, or I usually paid at this, and they're like, okay, but this year, blah, blah. I'm like, but that's not how. I'm like, you have to use a lunar calendar, and they're like, yeah, March, and I'm like, no. I was like, that is a Gregorian calendar. There is a lunar calendar that's there that and people are like, oh, like just completely oblivious to it. But that's a very important point.
The other one is kids. So zakat is due even if you're like
Yeah.
a child.
Yes.
I was not even aware of
Yeah.
that.
Most people overlook that because how many children actually own something, right? Usually it's in their parents' responsibility, and they're the ones who are usually taking care of it. Which situation specifically would it absolutely not apply? Usually in the case of orphans that have money that is in some type of trust, right? So there's money sitting in the trust. Those orphans, they have no idea, right? They don't have any parents, and there's this trust that's there. Technically, it should be the responsibility of the person who's overseeing the trust, right? That he takes out the zakat every year for them. So, but yeah, definitely.
And the third one is, for 401ks and
Uh-huh.
stuff, the way you calculate that. So I've been going back and forth between the 2.5%
Yeah.
or the 10% on the increase in value of the total
Oh,
assets.
okay. So you have to choose on whether you see it to be static or liquid,
Yeah.
right? So if you're paying on just the profit every year, there's gonna have to
But I
be some
haven't heard you
recalculation.
mention that
Okay.
opinion.
Oh, the 0.75. Yeah.
No, the 10%.
Okay. No.
So that's not valid.
No.
Okay.
Where'd you get that from?
I can't remember. I've read several opinions.
Okay.
But basically, it's treating it as I think that what they're missing is they're looking at the profit,
Yeah.
but they're missing the.
Because the
assets.
problem with the profit is in many 401ks there's a percentage that's matched by the company contribution. So I don't. Yeah, I'm curious. If you have anything, just share it with me, please.
Yeah, I'll look
Okay.
it up.
I'm
I've
curious.
seen that opinion.
I'm kind of curious to see where they got that from.
Yeah, it's based 10% of the
Of the profit, I understand.
Of the
Like
profit
it's the change in
of the
value.
increase.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I just want to know what is the logic behind it.
Okay, I'll find it. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
I think it's still not valid even if you think about it because even if you get the profit, even if
Yeah.
you're not getting profit, the fact that it goes up and down every
Yeah.
time, you'll be paying zakat on the total amount multiple
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find
Okay.
out.
Carlos, second one. Yes, that's you.
So like, allowance, like when you're a child.
I'm paying zakat on your allowances.
You're getting $4,500 in allowance?
No. It's like, no. It's actually, I looked up the value of gold. Do you guys know how much 85 grams of gold is? It's valued at right now. It's $7,500.
7,500.
Yeah. Hey, language. Don't you have school?
So basically,
Never mind. Anyway, it's like, okay.
How about college
Yeah.
funds?
College funds, it's the same thing. It's a type of investment, right? That you'd pay zakat on as well. And you would stop paying zakat when it's time for a payout. The advantage of the college fund is that you can keep putting money into it and you don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
But then what's the logic about it? So for 401k, that it's likened to an investment in a business.
Sure.
This one is more like you're
Only use
saving
it for education.
You're saving for college as opposed to investing.
Yeah.
Only
I mean,
education.
but even if I dedicate money for a specific use, why would that change? If I put money aside only for a house, even if I'm paying for a service, college is a service, correct? It's an educational service. So if I'm putting money aside for a service or I'm putting it aside for an asset, why would that be any different?
Well, that's cash. It's more like cash for me.
Is it voluntary money that I'm putting aside for a particular use?
Yes.
That's why I don't see it to be
And
any
it
different.
grows.
And it's going to grow, right? The value grows. Because what is the purpose of the college fund? That it increases in
No,
value.
I'm saying
Yeah.
it's not decatable. It is decatable.
Oh, okay.
But it's
That's what I
decatable
thought.
as cash as
Uh-huh.
opposed to
Ah,
as
Yeah.
an investment.
that is debatable because it's a long-term investment as well. So any long-term investments I would see would apply. So even if I hold stocks for more than a year, I would not. I would treat those as investments. I wouldn't treat that. The only time I treat,
That's stock. That's
yeah.
stock. That's a business. Right?
Yes, a stock is essentially a business. The only time I would treat stock as currency is if I hold it for less than 1 lunar year. So if I hold a stock for 6 months, it's like, no, I'm going to treat that like cash, and I'm going to pay the entire zakat amount on it. Does that make sense? But a college fund is something that I'm holding for years.
That's not what I'm arguing about. I'm arguing about putting cash for college.
Yeah.
It's not a business, right? Yeah, it's a service, but I'm not investing in
But it's
a business.
accumulated wealth, that's the thing.
Eh,
It's accumulated
If I have a
wealth,
gold
right?
bar sitting in my drawer for 3 months, 8 months, a year, 10 years, do I pay?
2.5%.
I pay zakat on it. So why wouldn't I pay on cash?
But it's 2.5%.
Sure.
What you told her is treat it as like you treat the.
Oh, so
401k.
no, but college fund isn't cash that's being held. It's an investment account. Do you understand?
Yeah.
A college fund is actually an investment account. It's a vehicle just like a 401k, just like a Roth IRA.
No, I think
The only
I think
thing,
it's both, right?
it
No,
can't,
so if
You
you
choose to invest or if just to keep it as cash, I think.
so even if you keep it as cash, it's going to grow either either through bonds, right, or some type of certificates, or save it, or you're going to collect interest on it.
Are bonds high on? I thought they were like,
You guys want to talk about money next time?
Yes,
okay, you know what, yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
Let's do it. Let's
all
do
right.
it.
yes,
Okay, we'll talk about finance.
okay.
Okay, we'll get a little bit more into finance. My view on fiat is a little non-conventional, but we'll talk about that the first full week of January.
Inshallah.
Okay.
I have a side question. Real estate, if somebody gets into real estate, selling houses,
Yeah.
is that haram money? Or
No, absolutely not. I don't believe so. The only different, how do you pay zakat on real estate? That I would say that you would pay zakat on the profit that you earn in its entirety at the time of sale. So if I flip homes, I buy one for $350, I sell it for $500. The moment I sell it for $500, I would pay 2.5% on $150,000.
what about if you are like the broker? Is that real estate brokers allowed in Islam?
Yeah, because they're providing a service. Anybody who's providing a service and taking money for that service, there's nothing wrong with that. Khas. So next time, inshallah, like I said, next 2 weeks we're off.
Okay.
And then the first full week of January, inshallah, we'll have a discussion on finance. All right. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you guys. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.